poverty in the legislature, and we got to know each other. So there's a side of Gwen Moore that I really respect. And now I just want to say, there's been these false ideas floating around the electorate that somehow the Republicans are a war party and the Democrats are a peace party. That cannot be further from the truth. We got two war parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
That's right.
And we're both been corrupted by the military-industrial complex. Both of them take money from the military-industrial complex and are working on behalf of the military-industrial complex. Now, as far as Democrats go, Gwen is actually better than a whole lot of Democrats. And I know Jess will say something about this when they're going to talk to him. But she was just one of 30 Democrats who signed a letter to the president saying that we need diplomacy. We need to mix our sending support to you with Ukraine with diplomacy. It was a very rational, well thought out letter. And I just want to read a couple paragraphs from you because it was such a great letter. We write with the, dear Mr. President, we write with appreciation for your commitment to Ukraine's legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression. So I'm just going to pick out a couple sentences and paragraphs. The risk of nuclear weapons being used has been estimated to be higher now than at any time since the height of the Cold War. Given the catastrophic possibilities of nuclear escalation and miscalculation, which only increase the longer this war continues, we agree with your goal of avoiding direct military conflict as an overriding national priority. Given the destruction created by this war for Ukraine and the world, as well as the risk of catastrophic escalation, we also believe it is in the interest of Ukraine, the United States, and the world to avoid a prolonged conflict. For this reason, we urge you to pair military and economic support of the United States, support the United States has provided to Ukraine with a proactive diplomatic push. So let me say that one more time. For this reason, we urge you to pair the military and economic support the United States has provided to Ukraine with a proactive diplomatic push, redoubling efforts to seek a realistic framework for a ceasefire. And just a couple more paragraphs. So you can see how rational this letter is.
Yeah.
It should be non-controversial. Last two paragraphs. In May, President Zelensky, despite deadlock negotiations, reiterated that the war will only definitely end through diplomacy and had previously explained any mentally healthy person always chooses the diplomatic path because he or she knows, even if it is difficult, it can prevent the loss of thousands, tens of thousands, and maybe even millions of lives. In conclusion, we urge you to make vigorous diplomatic efforts in support of a negotiated settlement and ceasefire. Engage in direct talks with Russia. Explore prospects for a new European security arrangement acceptable to all parties that will allow for a sovereign independent Ukraine, and in coordination with our Ukrainian partners, seek a rapid end to the conflict and reiterate this goal as America's chief priority. A very rational letter,
yeah.
Putting diplomacy in the mix, asking for a ceasefire. What could be more rational? Unfortunately, after these 30 Congress people signed it, they got so much pressure from their fellow Democrats that after 24 hours, they were forced to withdraw this letter and take it back. It's a shame. And Jess, I think you're going to say something about that. We're going to try to meet with Gwen and get her to put another letter in. When I talked to her staff said, I asked the staff, was withdrawal of this letter a matter of content or timing? He said timing. So I hope that gives me hope that she'll sign another letter, hopefully. So we want to meet with Gwen. And I don't want to burn bridges. I want to meet with her. I think she has a good heart, and I'd like her to resubmit this letter. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
All right, thank you, Jim. So a lot of my comments will be along the same lines regarding this letter. Representative Moore was a signatory to a letter authored by the House Progressive Caucus last year, which urged diplomacy in pursuit of peace. The letter called on the Biden administration to make, quote, vigorous diplomatic efforts its means of seeking, quote, a rapid end to the conflict. Reasonable, humane, and even courageous, given the media atmosphere surrounding the issue, especially at the time. That's the type of political action we need from our elected representatives. Just one day later, however, in an act of consummate political cowardice, the caucus retracted the letter, assuring their campaign contributors that no, they had no principles, and that they were very sorry. They pledged their unflinching support for prolonged war as long as it was deemed necessary or profitable. Representative Moore could not be reached for comment at the time. One reason I'm so pleased by the spirit of collaboration and unity here is that we're just citizens, not politicians. I hope that the maturity, respect, and commitment to peace shown here can be an example to our elected leaders. Hey, someone's got to be the adult in the room. Right. But we're just citizens. Those with political power have a level of moral obligation the average citizen does not to act in the interests of peace. American legislators, even more so, given that the government they staff has been the greatest purveyor of violence the world over for some time. Our country, armed with nuclear weapons and an empire of military bases, has kept client governments obedient and the resources flowing back home with the threat and use of tremendous violence. An American politician has a moral obligation to repair these injustices by opposing the agenda of those who see the world as a grand chessboard and not the shared home of humanity for our brief watch as this planet's stewards. When a war is raging, it would be nice if someone in power stood up and said, let's work to end this. This is bloody and horrible. When a course of action risks a third world war, it would be nice if someone in power stood up and said, no, this is insane, unconscionable, and deeply stupid. Even if it were politically unpopular to say so. Write another letter, Representative Moore. The first one was fine.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Speaking of March, Johnson, James. What? Yep, he's been the champ. James and then Jess.
Let's roll out.
Oh, so now we are on the way, I think, to the federal building.
I'm from Milwaukee.
Not for war.
Running from Milwaukee.
Not for
Not for war.
1, 2, 3, 4.
No more endless 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 war.
Policy. Not dead. Policy. Not dead. Policy. Not dead. Policy.
Not dead.
Policy. Not dead. Unity. Not World War III.
Unity, not World War III.
Unity.
Not World War III.
Unity.
Not World War III.
Unity.
Not World War III.
No war with Russia.
No war with Russia.
No war with China.
No war with China.
No World War III.
No World War III.
No nuclear holocaust.
No nuclear holocaust.
No war with Russia.
No war with Russia.
No war with China.
No war with China.
No World War III.
No World War III.
No nuclear holocaust.
No nuclear holocaust.
I'm coming.
Don't escalate.
Negotiate.
Don't escalate.
Negotiate.
Don't escalate.
Negotiate.
Don't escalate.
So Johnson Controls is a big anchor company. They're moving up. That's where I used to work. And then 2 blocks up this way is where that Joshua Park, where they broke the slave out of jail in 1850. They,
Nice.
500 people smashed to a brick to get the slave out, and yeah. So that's just a block. You can a block and a half up there, and there's a fair number of like event demonstrations there.
No war with Russia.
No war with Russia.
I could grab a
No
quick cup
war
of coffee,
with
but I gotta be
China.
on the road. But
Oh, okay.
Because my
No
daughter
World
has
War III.
gymnastics meet.
No
Right.
nuclear holocaust.
Well, I saw that one place that was open.
No
Pita
war with
bread.
Russia.
You see, there might be a Subway.
Back
No
here next
war with
weekend.
China.
Maybe we can do it then. Because are you
No World War
doing anything
III.
that Saturday? Are you going to Ithaca or Jimmy Door? Or?
No nuclear
Oh well,
holocaust.
yeah. I'll be going to the, to the Ithaca movie for sure.
What?
Let's
Right.
get together then.
Okay.
When do
Cool.
we want it?
Awesome.
I'll do that.
What do we want?
All right.
When do we want it?
Yeah, it's a nice old building.
What do we want?
Maybe we could hang out with Barb after
When
the
do we
Jimmy Door
want it?
show if she doesn't have too much else going on. She
What
said
do
she
we
has
want?
Okay. Yeah, and
When
we've
do we
had
want it?
horses here.
What do we want?
Had
And when do we want it?
anti-Trump
What do we want?
anti-Trump thing.
When do
They
we
just
want
allowed people in the
What do we
street.
want?
There's no permit or anything.
And
It's
when
just
do we want?
spontaneous. It's interesting. But yeah, there's
Money
a
for
lot of
Milwaukee, not for war.
probably where
Money
my
for
face
Milwaukee.
first got it.
Good
Money
shoe
for
store.
Milwaukee.
Right, right. It's a Wisconsin business, right?
Money for Milwaukee. Money for Milwaukee.
Yeah, you got to watch out the rules here. You get off the cart, you know what I mean? That
What's that?
they tend to enforce all the law for protests around the federal building. You know, so it's like, don't get your feet off.
1, 2, 3, 4. No more endless war. 1, 2, 3, 4.
No more endless war.
1, 2, 3, 4.
No more endless war.
1, 2, 3, 4.
No more endless war.
1, 2, 3, 4.
No more endless war.
Peace talk. What do we want?
Peace talk.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Peace talks.
And when do we want them?
Now,
What do we want?
ceasefire.
When do we want it? What do we want?
Ceasefire.
And when do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Ceasefire.
And when do we want it?
Now.
And if we don't get it,
Shut it down.
yeah! No war with Russia!
No war with Russia.
No war with China!
No war with China.
No World War III!
No World War III.
No nuclear holocaust!
No
Nuclear holocaust.
No war with Russia!
No war with Russia.
No war with China!
No war with China.
No World War III!
No World War III.
No nuclear holocaust!
No nuclear holocaust. Phil, do you want that letter from Johnson? I got a copy. Nope. Nope. Got it.
So here we stand in front of the office of Senator Ron Johnson. Who have a little bit of history. You may or may not know I ran against him in 2016.
Should have won.
He actually asked me to drop out. He was sitting down here. He was afraid that I was thinking influence would enable Russ Feingold to win. And to be honest with you, given the fact that Russ Feingold is, at least early in his political career was for peace and voted against the Patriot Act, I think he might have been the only senator at the time to do so, or very few. I wish I would have made the difference and Feingold would have won, given that I wasn't blind to it. That being said, recently Ron Johnson put out a letter asking for negotiations in Ukraine and with Russia,
Right.
Yes.
which we'll applaud.
Yes.
Although, as we discussed this part of the demonstration today, we all agreed that we weren't quite sure about his motives. When Jim mentioned about timing and Gwen Moore, it seemed to me that Ron Johnson's timing might have been a little bit off, and it's not quite time for that message to be received favorably by the current administration, if ever. But nonetheless, we'll give him credit for having stated that anyway.
That's right.
However, there's always a however, Ron Johnson is representative of what is exactly wrong and why we have the constant warfare state that we have right now. And that is, he is just a tool of other powers. He is a tool of the Republican Party. He is a tool of those special interests that give tons of money to both Republicans and Democrats every year. If you have done some research, which I assume a lot of you have, you'll know that senators and representatives, the House of Representatives, are required to fundraise for their parties in their headquarters in order to get funds from their party. And although those representatives in both houses may or may not receive direct contributions from war profiteers, they definitely indirectly do to the RNC and the DNC. So let's not forget what is actually controlling this. We are here traveling around to 2 senators and 1 congressperson's offices to ask them to act. But really, and not to sound, I have hope, but I have the same hope that somebody said earlier, and that is that we need to vote these representatives all out. Mainly because they cannot act independently. They cannot do what we're asking them. There are representatives or people in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party who do seem to have good consciences, but inevitably they're the ones that get primary. They're the ones that are marginalized. They're the ones, I remember at the rally in DC in February that Dennis Kucinich spoke, who was a powerful voice for peace while he served in Congress. However, he was marginalized. Tulsi Gabbard has been marginalized. Justin Amash converted to the Libertarian Party, and then he had to leave because he was going to be primary to office. So what we really need to do is attack the military cartel. The money that they spend and control our government, the money that they spend on media to tell the lies, to influence so many people in our society, if not most, and make it very difficult for us as we struggle for peace and against war to be successful. Let's understand the scope of the problem. Let's understand that while we may have hope for Republicans and Democrats that are in office, that maybe the evidence suggests otherwise, we need to vote them out. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that if, and this applies to all 3 of the representatives' offices that we visited today, if we protest but still vote for them, if they don't think they're going to lose your vote, then they're not going to respond. They never will. If they don't think your vote is at risk, if they'll listen to you politely, they'll listen to us politely, nod their heads, spend a little time occasionally, but then expect you to get in line, much like the Bernie supporters ended up doing in large part in 2016, when even though Tammy Baldwin cast her superdelegate vote for Hillary Clinton, despite the fact that Bernie won Wisconsin, that's the sort of corruption that we're dealing with. Is that we need to vote them out and hold the vote. Vote them out. Vote them out. Absolutely. If they think that you're going to vote for them anyway, and they'll just nod their head, smile, send out a letter every now and again, even though they know that it won't go anywhere. And I might sound very skeptical, but I've been involved in politics for almost 10 years now as a candidate and as a representative of a party, and you see it every single time. Don't be afraid to vote for somebody else. If peace is that big of an issue, which it is, we're all out here in freezing weather protesting about it. If it is, don't waste your time and effort today. Don't waste your activism. And then when it comes to November of 2024, say, well, this person is the lesser of 2 evils, and this other candidate doesn't have a chance of winning. Green Party candidate, Libertarian candidate, People's Party candidate, whatever. Vote your conscience. Make them pay for the decisions, because war is the biggest issue, and we won't get anywhere voting the same people back into office.
All right.
Yes. Yes. Nicely said.
To kind of piggyback off of that, just saw a fantastic tweet recently from a journalist from Australia named Caitlin Johnstone. Paraphrasing, but here's the deal. She kind of describes kind of the paradigm of the two-party system right now, where we have basically unanimous support within Congress for this proxy war with Russia over Ukraine, with a few dissenting voices being allowed within the Republican Party. And it's kind of what we're seeing here right now. He makes a statement. Okay, strongly worded email. That's what that is. But then conversely, on the Democrat side, we're actually just in general, we have basically unanimous support for war with China, with the few dissenting voices on the Democrat Party, right? This is a two-party unilateral thing of the war machine, right? They all take the same donations from the same lobbyists, from Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, etc., right? There is no big anti-war party. It does not exist. And again, if we continue, to your point, if we continue to do this kind of activism, come out here and demand change and demand peace and demand cuts to the military budget, but then in November we vote for them anyway, what the hell did we do? Why did we do this? We're full of shit. So let's stop that. All right? Stop voting for war criminals. Stop voting for people who bomb kids. Stop voting for people who put the entire world at risk of nuclear annihilation. It's over. No more of that. You do not have time for that.
That's right.
All right? Now, here's the deal. Just want to make a quick remark about the Ukraine situation, because this is the war now that pretty much the entire corporate media apparatus is telling us, you know what? We got Iraq wrong. We got Afghanistan wrong. We might have been wrong about Syria, Libya, Somalia, Vietnam. All right, about this one though, this is different. It's different this time. You don't understand. This is the good war. This is different than every other U.S. war for the last 75 years. And by the way, we're being sold this idea by the people who lied to us about every U.S. war for the last 75 years. At what point do we just call bullshit? It's got to happen. It's got to happen. So this is where we have to do this. You know, we have this one event that we're doing today. We're out here in the cold. We're doing our thing. And we're talking trash to powerful people. And that's what we need to do. But you know what? That's not enough. We got to keep on this on a regular basis. Because without this, what we have is a basically just a universal narrative that this is somehow the good war. We're finally getting it right. The U.S. is finally the right side of a global conflict. It's not. It's not. So we have to keep pushing on this front. Thank you, Phil, for your speech on this. I really wish you would have beat Ron Johnson. That would be very cool. Let's make that happen again. All right, let's get him out of there. Let's get you in the Fed building here. That'd be cool. All right, hey, by the way, last time we came out here, they made a very, very big deal about us not getting on the steps. So before we leave, everybody just poke it. All right, poke it. Poke it. This is our compliance. All right. Take it back. Break it to that. All right. So let's do this. We are going to march on back to Zyla because that's where all of our cars are parked and that's where we left Mike. So let's head on back there. It's been loud as hell. Let's do it.
All right.
Absolutely. Hey, Bob. How you doing?
Am I on?
You gotta push it up.
Oh, sorry. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming out. I'm glad that I got to catch the end of this. The Greens are always in support of any anti-war actions. We want to make sure that we're out here with you all. A couple weeks ago, it was freezing over here and we were over by the orange statue. And that marked 20 years in Iraq. Back when we went there, I was in middle school. How many human lifetimes is it going to take for us to get this right? To not listen to the propaganda and to say, well, obviously somebody's profiting from this crazy war. This is not for us. This is not our war. This is for somebody else to profit. This is not for our people. Our people are going to be killed. The Ukrainian people, the Russian people, people around the world are going to be killed. And that's going to help somebody to profit. How many lifetimes is it going to take? Because as I hear from history class, we were doing this back in World War I. And we were doing this long, long time ago. And those people, those activists are now gone. And we have a whole new crop of activists, generation after generation. I'd like for us to get this right as a society and stop doing these ridiculous wars. I won't keep you out too much longer. I just want to say that one of my signs around here is about ending the military-industrial complex. And people tell us all the time, oh, we don't have enough money for things like clean water in our own city. We don't have enough money for anything. We can't pay workers right. We can't do all of this stuff. There's just not money for all of the people. We already paid the money. It went to the government, and the government spent it on this nonsense. We could have spent that on our own people so that we're not dying of lead poisoning.
Yeah.
We could have spent it on our own people to make sure that the industry and the business help support our communities, that our roads aren't crumbling, that our bridges aren't crumbling, that people aren't here out on the streets all winter. We have the money to do this stuff. We already spent it and we gave it to people who are just feeding the war machine. So if we just don't do that, then we have the money to fix the problems that are so important in our society, that we don't need to use prison labor, as we were talking about a couple weeks ago. We don't need to, we don't need to have this messed up society that we have now, that is just languishing, that is waiting for the next billionaire to come and save our city by creating jobs. Where are the jobs right here? We have the money. We just spent it on the wrong thing. So let's spend it on peace. Let's have peace dividends. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good. All right. Okay.
James, you ready? You are ready? All right. Go ahead, Jim.
Maybe we could peel off. I don't know if you have time for the coffee or not.
Well, I need to get back to my car because I got to be on the road.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So
All right.
Yeah.
that was awesome. I'm glad that you snuck in there. I got the video. All right, I think I'm going to shell the video.